isn't about leads. It isn't about pipeline. These measures, we've been saddled with these measures within Oracle for most of our account-based marketing journey. The good news for us right now is, the CMO who's running marketing for us now in EMEA and APAC, she's an enlightened marketeer. She's come in from the outside. She's not come up through the Oracle way of thinking about these things. And I get the distinct impression she's not going to continue to saddle us with those kinds of metrics. And one of and in its place, I'm interested in metrics like how many advocates can we create for the Oracle brand from what we do. And that's, I'll come to that in terms of extending the parts of the customer journey that we are engaged with. I think as marketeers, we're all very familiar with trying to engage with customers during their buying cycle. Account-based marketing should also be engaging customers during their purchase, implementation, value realization, and ultimately the recommendation cycle as well. And that's part of what we're trying to do now, is to extend account-based marketing into the customer cycle as well as just in the buying cycle before they've actually bought this thing from you. So those principles became our model, and this is, again, something that's stood the test of time. So we have this insight to advisor model, whereby we have an insight phase, which is what you'd expect. We're looking to understand our customers. We're looking to understand the people that we need to know within those customers, and we use technology to do that. So some of the agencies and other partners that are here today, when we started this, there was a couple of agencies out there that said they were ABM. There was some agencies that said they were ABM and they clearly weren't. And you have to sort that out if you're on my side of the fence. Work out who really does know this stuff and who doesn't. But on the insight phase, social listening is a great insight, whereby if you've got customers that are out there talking about their business, talking about their industry, they happen to be influential, social listening is a great source of insight, and we have an insights platform for doing that. We've worked with Agent 3, we've worked with Momentum on that kind of insight. Other forms of insight would be intent data. So if you can get some exposure to the research phase that was mentioned earlier, before a customer will ever talk to you, when they're researching, if you can get insight to what they're researching, then that's great insight. That can end up being intent data, propensity to buy for the kinds of things that you want to be able to sell. So insight, we don't do anything in a customer without insight. And I mustn't forget, probably the biggest source of insight, if you're working at the strategic end, is the account team itself. And again, if they don't have insight on their customer, and you sometimes go to account team meetings in Oracle and there's 30 people sitting in the room, if there's not sufficient insight on that customer sitting in that room, you've got a problem. And the job of ABM is the challenge for ABM is that it's not that there's not the insight sitting in the room, it's getting it out of people's heads and into a story that you can play sensibly back to the customer. Because if you leave it to the customer, to the salespeople in the room to tell that story, inevitably they're going to have their own narrow agenda. They've got their own product to sell. They've got their own contacts to talk to. They've got their own perception of how to represent the Oracle brand properly. And you can't take a risk on that. So part of ABM is to get these sources of insight, whether it's through social listening, whether it's through intent data, or whether it's through the account team, and craft that into a transformational conversation, which is the perspective. So we used to call that proposition, value proposition. The trouble with when we called it that was it gave people the impression this was really all about Oracle. This was our proposition. We refined that to perspective because perspective is a softer story. It's our perspective, it's our thoughts on the industry you're in. on you, your challenges. We can make a perspective more all about them and less about us.